Hello, this is Andrea for the Learning Bear Podcast, your resource for wild professional development. Today, we're going to talk about how to introduce your students to nature. I realized recently that maybe nature and environmental science, and maybe even science in general, are new to your classroom or to you, or maybe just to the kids that live in your house. So I thought it would be a good idea to have sort of an introductory lesson, and it would give you a little taste of what you're in for, kind of figure out what your students or your children are interested in, and can kind of be a springboard for the next level for you. There's an activity in Project Wild called Interview a Spider, but we're going to kind of do a little twist on that and interview a Spider-Man first. Superheroes are really big right now with the Avengers and with the Marvel Cinematic Universe and the DC Comics universe, so it's something that kids are aware of. It's everywhere. So it's something they're familiar with. So you want to make sure that your students know what an interview is, first of all. So usually it's one person asking questions and one person answering questions. There can be some variations there, but for this situation, it's going to be one person asking, one person answering. Then there's reporting, and reporting is when you take the information from that interview and you either make a news story out of it that would be on television, or you write an article for a newspaper or for a blog or a website and convey that information written. In this situation, we are going to start with Spider-Man, but we're going to move into nature and maybe even spiders if they're into that. And so that does involve some personification. So we do have to understand that personification is taking human characteristics and putting them on an animal like a spider, but spiders don't actually talk to us. Okay. Depending on the age group that you're working with, that may be something you need to make them aware of. Okay. So just some notes about this. You're stepping into a pretend world, which is where Spider-Man lives, right? So this can be fun. Students will need to brainstorm questions or have like an open discussion about what they would like to ask Spider-Man or eventually an animal. Your goal as a teacher is to teach them or guide them with relevant and useful questions. Kind of keep it on track, okay? So the step one is to introduce the activity. Start talking about superheroes like Spider-Man. What would you ask Spider-Man if you were given the chance? And start recording these on like a chalkboard or a whiteboard, or I don't know if overhead projectors are still a thing, but you could possibly have that, or a smartboard. You could type it into a document. Any of those things are options. Then as the discussion comes to a close and people stop asking relevant, useful questions, then say, would these be the same questions you would ask a real spider? And then make some comparisons. Well, I wouldn't ask that question, but here's the version I would ask, okay? So then your students can select and research an animal either in pairs or individually and start developing ideas and questions about what they would ask. You could also draw some other connections between other superheroes. I mean, obviously Spider-Man and spiders makes a very clear-cut directionality, but maybe you take another superhero like the Hulk, and he's big and he's got muscles and he grunts and roars. Maybe you relate that to a gorilla. Maybe Captain America, he's the symbol for America and he's got America's colors, at least early on. Maybe you relate that to the national symbol for the United States, which is the eagle. I don't know. Spin it any way you like. I think Spider-Man or superheroes is a really good springboard to get you into the next level and get them talking about what you really want them to talk about. So then step 2 is to plan your questions. You could do this as a group or have them do it in pairs, individually, etc. Here's some sample questions that you might be interested in, and these I took from Project Wild in their manual. What kind of animal are you? So if you're asking a spider that, they're an arachnid. What do you eat? How do you find your food? Where do you live? Describe one thing that is unique about you. What is something that most kids don't know about you? And how can kids be helpful to you? Now, if you're doing this with your own children, just trying to like talk to them, if you're a homeschooler and you have a smaller class scenario, this would definitely be available to you. Maybe you know what animal they're researching, and maybe you could do some of your own research, and you would be the spider answering these questions, and you would actually give them factual information rather than made up information. So that could be a really fun spin on it. Now, if you're a teacher and you have 30 kids, I don't think that's going to be feasible, but maybe they can find an adult to help them. I don't know. You're creative. I'm sure you can figure it out. So step 3 would be to conduct the interviews if you're ballsy enough to do it. Students will pair up and interview each other, pretending they're the selected creature, or again, if you're working with a smaller situation, maybe you could be that pretend animal like a spider. It is really important that if you are pairing the students up, they have to convey the perspective of the animal without adding excessive human characteristics. I mean, obviously talking is we're already in that personification world, but if somebody asks a spider what they eat, they really shouldn't say pizza or ice cream, because that's not what spiders eat. Okay? So you need to keep a little bit of a rein on your kids. It's funny to say pizza, but it's not true. Okay? So step 4 is to take the information gathered in the interviews, and the students have to write a news article about their animal, or the students can make their own news broadcast and record their story. A really fun thing too could be maybe you have like a series of talk shows. You make your own talk show, and like Ellen or Oprah or whoever, and each one of those is a special guest. Ellen is asking them questions, asking a spider questions, asking a zebra questions, and so forth. And you have your own kind of series, and that would be really cool to see. It would also be interesting to have them write their own stories and compile them into a book for the classroom, an informational sort of book. They could submit them to the school newspaper if you have that, or into a yearbook. It would also be really fun. There's lots of different ways you could take this. It's just a nice, easy introduction, gets kids thinking, and you can also see what they're interested in. If you see most of your class doing land animals and not aquatic animals, maybe that's an opportunity for you to find something aquatic to get them interested into it, or focus on those land animals and get them really excited and passionate about whatever those land creatures there are. Also, this is an opportunity to connect to a possible job opportunity, like a wildlife journalist, and there's more information about that on projectwild.org. But a wildlife journalist is doing similar things like that, finding out information about a specific animal and either reporting it to a media outlet or writing a story for a blog and so forth. So kind of like what I'm doing right here. So really easy introduction. I hope you try this with your students or your children, and I hope you have a great day. I'll catch you next time. Please subscribe to my channel, either on Buzzsprout, YouTube, Stitcher, Google Music, all of them. I'm on all of them. So please check me out. And if you have any questions, you can submit content ideas to learningbearpodcast@gmail.com, and you can support me on Patreon.